Dear Lord, thank you for such a wonderful day in Powhatan County. Thanks for keeping everyone safe in this past week. Challenges with the weather. Thanks for all the first responders and all they did to keep our citizens safe and informed. Please be with us as we seek to do the people's business. Amen.
Amen.
Members of the board, are there any requests to postpone or change anything on the agenda as it has been presented by the county administrator? Seeing none, I will entertain a formal approval of the agenda as presented.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
This is our first of 2 public comment periods. We welcome the civil sharing of your thoughts, your perspective on matters and issues germane to county business. Public comment is an important part of our due process and in our decision making, and we do care very much what you have to say. A few guidelines. If you're here to speak on an issue listed under the public hearing section of the agenda, for instance, 11A, if you're following on the agenda, the smart scale projects, we urge you to wait for that to be heard before you speak. Number 2, as a point of decorum, these public comment periods are not forum for attacks on specific individuals, nor of any group, nor for political campaigning, nor for promoting a business. Please stay focused on the issues about which this board has responsibility. Limit your comments to 3 minutes or 5 if you're representing a group. And please consider not repeating if someone else has already made your point. And finally, please sign in with your name, address, and county or city so that we can get the record straight. The public comment period is open.
Mr. Chairman, I have one question. Our smart scale projects are listed as new business. They're not public hearings, so if they were to speak, I guess they would speak at this first public comment period about that, because we don't normally have comments during a new business item.
I'm going to allow public comments.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Just wanted
Yes,
a point
sir.
of clarity.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Where do I sign in at?
Right here.
Say I had to sign in. All right, where you want me to stand? Right there?
Yes, sir.
Right there, Mr. Cave.
Mike, this is something new to me. I ain't never done this before. So we are concerned about Rockefeller Road. Well, my name is David Cave, and I live on 3501 Pineview Drive.
Thank you, sir.
And the road, Rockefeller Road from Palmer to Genito is in right bad shape. And I went to a lot of people, and I got your list of names here I'm gonna give y'all, that maybe y'all can give them to whoever needs it to help get the road fixed.
Would you give it to the county attorney, please? Anything else you wish to say, sir?
No, sir. Y'all take
Mr.
care
Melton,
of
do
that.
you
I
have a
appreciate
response?
it.
Mr. Cave, first of all, thank you for your phone call, and
Okay.
thanks for you and others for collecting these signatures. Rocky Ford Road is a road that Mr. Norving and I have worked on the speed limit for a while, and there are some concerns with both the overflow, some ditches, and water running across the road. I was not aware, as it was mentioned to me tonight, that many years ago, there was actually a plan and designed to relocate Rocky Ford Road, straighten all those curves. And the name that was brought up was Mr. Joe Clay Worsham, who, Joe Clay
He's sort of
was
like
in this
Cher.
county for a long time. So it wouldn't hurt if we do know if there was a plan to straighten those curves. Whatever happened to it, of course, it was probably, the monies were spent somewhere else. It would be probably my guess.
Probably was an emergency, probably needed somewhere else, that's
Yeah,
fine, but you
so-
know, if he can go back and fix it, it'd be nice.
But it'd be nice to understand if there was an actual plan that was done by VDOT or the county to actually straighten those curves and in that whole section. So, Mr. Cave, again, thank you, and we
All
will
right.
make sure we get this and have some dialogue with VDOT. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else wish to address the board?
Good evening, Chairman Tucker and Board of Supervisors members. My name is Mike Asip, and I'm from 3673 Old Buckingham Road, and I appreciate the opportunity to provide public comment. I was quite surprised that my citizen public comment on April 30th on issue-oriented public policy resulted in a supervisor's highly personalized response. I want to just think of some big ideas here. I want to talk about welcoming public comment, which the chairman already provided information about. Disagreeing agreeably, charitable charity, and appreciation for supervisors' service and leadership. Regarding public comment, I assume that members of the board utilize the general public comment time to gather student input, whether it agrees or disagrees with individual members. I'm sure the board supports First Amendment rights to free expression for all citizens without attempting to quash any free speech that may challenge policy positions of individual leaders or the board as a whole. I hope all citizens can feel their public comments are welcome, whether they disagree or agree with board member positions. As Covey notes, one habit of successful leaders is seek first to understand before seeking to understood. Disagreeing agreeably, my public comment a couple of weeks ago was issue-oriented about a tax rate, not intended for personal attack on any individual. I sincerely believe that citizens who have differing viewpoints can express their thoughts in dialogue that exemplifies respect and a desire to hear divergent viewpoints. You as leaders have challenging work, making decisions that not every citizen will agree with, and I respect all the work that you do. Charitable charity. One supervisor challenged me to match his charitable donation to local charitable organizations. I laud his donations and respect them immensely, but respectfully declined the challenge. My wife and I have quietly donated tens of thousands of dollars to local, state, and national charitable organizations over the past decade. Donations from our hearts, not for recognition, and certainly not based upon competition. Appreciation for supervisors' leadership and service. I really appreciate the difficult work you do, and also that of our staff in schools and county offices throughout this wonderful county. You leaders, you assume accountability for your votes, knowing that you cannot have every citizen happy with any single vote or collection of votes on important matters before you. As myself, a lifelong learner, I do wish to learn more about the governance of Powhatan County and engage in healthy discussions about multitudes of topics. I look forward to sharing public comment in the future. Thank you again for each of you for your service to our community.
Thank you, sir. Please sign in. Anyone else wish to address the board on any issue? Not seeing anyone come forward, I'll close this first of our two public comment periods. Moving on to item number 7 on our agenda, the consent agenda. What's the will of the board?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda is approved as presented. Item number 8 on their agenda, the appointments to boards and commissions. We have one to do tonight for the Extension Leadership Council. Ms. Cabell?
Yes, that's in my district. Johns Bailey has reapplied for that. I certainly think we're all familiar with Mr. Bailey and his great works, and I recommend that we reappoint him.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So be it. Thank you very much. If you turn the page and look at the upcoming appointments, I want to make sure, because we've got a lot of them due next month. Let's go down them one by one. Ag and Forest District Commission. Mr. Melton, Bill Cox needs to be reappointed or replacement.
Okay.
And Angie Randy Ogle. For the Anti-Litter Commission, Betty Handy has chosen not to proceed, so David, we're asking you to find a replacement for her. And Karen Yamaki, Mr. Nordvik is up for reappointment. We ask you to talk to her to see whether she wants to continue to serve on the Anti-Litter Council. The Board of Zoning Appeals, Monty Lewis has indicated he doesn't wish to continue to serve. Ms. Cabell, that's yours too, if you will look into it to see if you can find a good representative for the BZA. Mm-hmm. The Capital Area Agency on Aging, Larry Lyons. Larry is in the 1st District. David, if you'll check to see whether Larry will, I think he does want to continue to serve. The Extension Leadership Council, Angie has done Johns Bailey, but we also have Frankie Barham. I think that's yours, David, is it not? Did you not appoint Frankie Barham?
Yep.
So if you ask him if he wishes to continue. The Goochland Powhatan Community Services, Larry, you have Juliana Franklin. If you'll check to see whether she wants to continue to serve and whether you want to reappoint her or suggest reappointing her. The Library Board of Trustees, Bill, Pat Dewey is up for reappointment. If you'll check with her to see whether she wants to continue to serve on the Library Board of Trustees. The Powhatan Community Policy Management Team, Beverly Fund in the 5th District is willing to serve. I'll make that nomination next month. And Geraldine Purnell, which Mr. Melton, I think, is in your district.
She is.
Powhatan Family, Richmond Area Transportation Planning Organization, Citizens TAC. Our intent is to reappoint Andrew Pompey, or to appoint Andrew Pompey to that. And the Social Services Board, we have 3, Bobby Fulcher from the 3rd District, Gabe Bartlett from the 4th District, and Ernestine Taylor from the 5th District. So if you'll check with each one of those and see whether they're interested in continuing to serve and whether you want to suggest reappointment, we'd really appreciate it. It'll make sure these boards continue to function at full force. We're moving to item number 9 on the agenda, certificates of appreciation. The first one is the proclamation recognized Building Safety Month. Bill, if I might ask you to do it, and Brett, would you receive this for the county and your officials, please?
Mr. Chairman, before we do the proclamations, can we ask if somebody knows something about the air conditioning?
Does somebody know something about the air conditioning?
Does anybody know how to turn it on, for example?
Andy, did you say?
Mr. Chairman, I did get information from our staff setting up for the meeting that it was out and that they contacted building maintenance, facility maintenance. I'm told that our contractor was on the way about half an hour ago or so, so I'm hoping that we'll have some update on that while we're in process. In the meantime, we should minimize the distribution of hot air would be a good idea.
Mr. Melton, proceed.
Well, I could skip about 4 or 5 of these lines if you'd like. This is a proclamation for Building Safety Month, May 2018. Whereas Building Safety Month, sponsored by the International Code Council, International Code Council Federation, reminds the public about the critical role of communities' largely unknown guardians of public safety, our local code officials. Who assures us safe, efficient, and livable buildings. And whereas the international codes, the most widely adopted building safety and fire prevention codes in the nation, are used by most U.S. cities, counties, and states, and include safeguards to protect the public from natural disasters such as hurricanes, snowstorm, tornadoes, wildland fires, and earthquakes. And whereas building safety and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, builders, laborers, and others in the construction industry work year-round to ensure the safe construction of buildings, and whereas these dedicated members of the International Code Council develop and implement the highest quality codes to protect Americans in the buildings wherein we live, learn, work, worship, and play, and countless lives have been saved due to the implementation of safety codes by local and state agencies. And whereas building code saves lives, the theme of Building Safety Month 2018 encourages all Americans to raise awareness of the importance of building safe and resilient construction, fire prevention, disaster mitigation, water safety and conservation, energy efficiencies, and new technologies in the construction industry. And whereas each year in the observance of Building Safety Month, Americans are asked to consider the commitment to improve building safety and economic investment at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential services provided to all of us by local and state building departments, fire prevention bureaus, and federal agencies in protecting lives and property. Therefore be it proclaimed that Powhatan County Board of Supervisors does hereby recognize May 2018 as Building Safety Month in Powhatan County. Accordingly, our citizens are encouraged to consider projects to improve building safety and sustainability at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential services provided to all of us by local, state, building departments, and federal agencies in protecting lives and property. Make this form of a motion.
A second, please.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Brett, would you make sure that your staff gets our word, how much we appreciate? We know they don't get a lot of attention, but it's important that they know that we know they are good at what they do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Williams, would you present the proclamation recognizing Emergency Medical Services Week? Mr. Beach, would you come down? And Chief, and any of your staffs that are here. Please, staffs, come on down.
correct you. I'm just one of the members anymore. I no longer have a staff. It's just me. Billy Gwynn here is the new chief.
Billy, welcome to the new chief.
It's been over a year now.
Whoops. David, please.
How you doing? Doing good. Mr. Chairman, this is a proclamation recognizing National Emergency Medical Services Week and the EMS providers of the Powhatan County Fire and Rescue Department. Whereas the dedicated EMTs, EMT intermediates, and paramedics of Powhatan Volunteer Rescue Squad have partnered with the Powhatan County Fire and Rescue Department and Emergency Services Solutions to provide exemplary emergency medical care and vital service to the citizens of Powhatan County. And emergencies can occur at any moment, night, day, across Powhatan County. And whereas Powhatan County Fire and Rescue Department, including the Powhatan Volunteer Rescue Squad and Emergency Services Solutions, are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. And whereas the emergency medical services system consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, firefighters, dispatchers, educators, administrators, emergency nurses, emergency physicians, and others. And whereas the members of emergency medical services teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize and value the accomplishments of emergency medical services providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Board of Supervisors of Powhatan County does hereby proclaim the week of May 20 to 26, 2018 as Emergency Medical Services Week, and joins in honoring the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep the county and citizens safe. Mr. Chairman, I make this in the form of a motion.
Is there a second to this motion?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. We can't thank you enough. Not until you're on the receiving end of the need for you do people really realize how much they depend on you. Thank you very much. Mr. Norwick is going to present a proclamation recognizing the Economic Development Week. Senator Watkins and Brett, would you come forward to receive this for us?
Tim Benusa's in the audience.
Who is?
Tim Benusa.
Tim Benusa, and anybody else on the EDA, please come forward also. Thank you.
Been to any good restaurants lately? No?
Just one. It's a brewery.
Proclamation, Powhatan Economic Development Week 2018, May 28th to June 3rd, 2018. Whereas Powhatan County has proclaimed May 28th through June 3rd as Economic Development Week, and whereas economic development is a set of programs and policies that aid in the creation, retention, and expansion of jobs, the development of a stable tax base, and enhancement of wealth, and whereas Powhatan is committed to fostering a business-friendly climate that will attract employers, enable the county to remain competitive, and generate new jobs for our citizens, and whereas members of the Powhatan County Economic Development Department and Economic Development Authority are dedicated to serving the needs of the business community through services such as business and job retention efforts, site location assistance, international business development, new business development, business financing, infrastructure development, and workforce development. And whereas economic development organizations serve as a resource center committed to delivering local, state, and federal resources that will enhance the competitiveness of their regions and contribute to the county's economic growth and vitality. And whereas all Powhatan citizens benefit from a strong and prosperous economy, now therefore be it proclaimed that the Board of Supervisors of Powhatan County does hereby proclaim the week of May 28th through June 3rd, 2018 as Powhatan Economic Development Week in the County of Powhatan, and calls this observance to the attention of all of our citizens. Adopted by the Powhatan County Board of Supervisors on May 21st, 2018, in the form of a motion, Mr. Chairman.
A second, please.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for what you do. It is the future for this county, and we know you're working hard at it, each one of you. Thank you, Mr. Nordvig. And John and Brett, you can stay up here because you're next on the agenda.
So, Mr. Chairman, can I make a quick comment?
Surely.
First of all, before y'all get started, we had a business that celebrated its one-year anniversary yesterday. They sell an excellent beverage. Matter of fact, I think it's probably the best in Richmond, and I'm a beer connoisseur. So congratulations on the one-year anniversary for the brewery. Weather wasn't the greatest, but it still was a wonderful event from what I understand. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Milton. Mr. Watkins, Mr. Chardane, how do you want to handle this?
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I certainly appreciate the opportunity to appear here with you this evening and just give you an update with regard to the Economic Development Authority. First, I want to thank you for the appointment of what I think is a tremendous authority board. Dan Jones, Tim Benusa, Bob Gibson, Russ Holland Jr., Matt Schieffer, Andrea Weber, and myself. And we work together very well, and we work very hard to accomplish the goals that you set forth. We answer to you, and that's the primary thrust of this. When you go back to 2014, the Board of Supervisors defined the 2030 vision for the community. Subsequently, in 2016, y'all developed a need for an economic development strategy, and Bowman Consulting provided a lot of the assistance in that. The work that we have done this past year with your help and the support of the Riverlink Group is to put in place what we would call forward progress for the Economic Development Authority. It's built on three primary areas that I think are very important to each of us and to Powhatan County's future. One, we started working on and developed a branding, an internal and external messaging system, and a website for the EDA. Currently the website is still being finalized and finished by staff, and I think they've done a great job, but we've got the format down, and we've got it so we can look at it and tweak it and try to get it right by later on this summer, late June maybe, to introduce that. The other thing that we have done and concentrated on is business retention and expansion. I'm a firm believer that the reputation that the county builds is built on the relationships that they have with the businesses that are here today. If we can't build on that relationship, we're going to have difficulty getting new people, new businesses to come in here. So we've spent an extensive amount of time working with this business retention and expansion. There are 561 recognized businesses here in Powhatan County. That's a lot more than a lot of people think are in this county. The staff has made a concerted effort to conduct interviews with as many of those businesses as they possibly can, and they're getting ready to start another cycle, if you would, of interviewing other businesses to find out what are the issues, where are the barriers, what is it that we need to be focusing on and concentrating on with regard to today's businesses and their ability to retain their profitability and expand their profitability here in Powhatan County. Needless to say, a couple of the points that we constantly hear about, and I know you've heard them many, many times, is business level broadband and affordable housing are two biggies that we're going to have to find a way to respond to the business people with those needs. Third is continuing education. The county has, and a lot of this is staff, but we needed to make sure that we had an audience in front of some of the regional organizations and some of the state organizations that promote economic development. And we have added sites, or with Brett's help, we've added several sites to the Virginia SCAN, the Economic Development Authorities for the state, to make sure that we at least have a presence there. Y'all joined the Richmond Regional Tourism Organization, and that will lead to an affiliation and working with other entities or other area localities trying to promote tourism. All of these things are leading to our ability to work with other stakeholders. Richmond, the Gateway region, the Greater Richmond Partnership. We just need to maintain a presence with these groups, and that's what we will be working towards in the future. I would say that one of the areas that we feel compelled in this month in June, we have had a meeting scheduled, and it's going to conflict with the Board of Supervisors dealing with the comprehensive plan. So I suggested that what we as a board, we as a economic development authority, we not have a meeting, but we attend y'all's meeting and try to get a better understanding of what the focus is with that plan. That plan is essential for us to be able to be progressive in getting businesses, helping businesses stay here and be profitable here. So I would say to you that we want to help any way we can with seeing that plan get fully developed and vetted out to the community. It's very, very important. It's hard for us to go to the Greater Richmond Partnership or to VEDP and say, we've got all these sites, but we don't know how we're going to use them yet. So we need your help in that area, and we would say to you, we were glad to help you in any way that we can. Mr. Chairman, they are my comments. I'd be glad to answer any questions. I don't know all the answers by far, but.
Brett, do you have anything you want to add before we get into questions?
No, I think Senator Watkins summarized it well. Next week, with Business Appreciation Week, we will be starting our next round of business visits with existing businesses. So in informing the plan he talked about, we met with roughly 30 existing businesses last summer. Now this will be the start of a regular ongoing effort to meet with our businesses. And before we did that, first we went and tried to inventory all existing businesses that have a physical location in the county. That was the 561 individual properties or buildings that we identified. So now we have a list of where they are, who they are, what sector they're in, so then we can start using that as a roadmap for going out. And our goal would eventually be to try and meet or speak with all of our businesses here and understand what they're seeing, what their issues are, where we can work together, help them expand, help them with issues, workforce, all of those things. So we'll be starting that, which will be, I think, a pretty big step for us. We haven't been engaged with the business community through an economic development office in some years, so I think that'll be a big step for us that we're kicking off next week. And as you mentioned, we're finalizing the website, so we'll hope to launch that publicly in June, so a whole new website there. And then the inventory of available sites and buildings. I think the beginning of this month, there were, or maybe last month, there were only 3 sites in the state listing. We have that up to 28 now, and we're regularly putting more in there. Because when a business comes to the state agency saying they want to either locate to Virginia, or maybe they're a Virginia business wanting to move or relocate, they're not going to pick up the phone and call us and say, I see you only have 3 sites. What else do you have for me? They're going to just see that we only have 3 and move on. So it's really important that we have those in there for those leads and to generate some of that business here. So we've taken steps to, again, really increase the number of sites we have in that database as well. So those are some of the things we've been working on the past month or so, and yeah, looking forward to getting out and meeting with more businesses over the next month.
Let me start with a question, and then we open it up to questions for everybody. Brett, are we going to get an executive summary of the comments from the businesses that you've interviewed so we get a feel for what you all are feeling?
Yeah, we'd be happy to share that. We have a questionnaire, so some of it's just, just open conversation and dialogue, but we do have a questionnaire so that we get some of the same information, and that way we can take the results of many, many interviews, compile them so you can see trends in what are issues across the county, or breaking them out into different sectors. So people in the automotive business, what are the issues they're seeing versus somebody in manufacturing or retail. So yeah, I think we'd be happy to share those. Probably make more sense as we compile them, maybe on a monthly basis rather than sending, dozens or at some point hundreds of individual surveys. But as we compile that data, we'd be happy to share it.
Okay, put that in the tickle file. We would like to see that when you're ready. When the EDA has massaged it and digested it, we'd like to hear about it.
Mr. Chairman.
John, wait a minute.
Well, I would just say we have to be a little bit protective of the people, the business people.
That was my comment.
And, we're going to probably put it in a cumulative form and be able to.
That's what I
yeah.
want by executive summary. Yeah, we don't want to know the individual
Right.
response. Absolutely.
We're trying, Brad and them have done a good job of introducing themselves to the business people who are willing to talk. And part of it is, we want them to tell us what they're thinking. And in order to do that, you have to maintain a little bit of privacy is what's going on.
Understand. Absolutely. Okay, I'll open it up to questions from the board.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to follow up with your question. John, I'm not looking for the individuals' names or the name of the business or anything like that, but it would be helpful to be able to get a pulse on the extent to which people are saying something. Is it one business? Is it 2 businesses? Is it 3 businesses out of, out of the whole catchment of, surveys? So some gauge of, how intense or what % of the businesses are feeling a particular thing or stating a certain thing. Because otherwise, just saying, well, you may have had 2 or 3 people respond to a particular question, and you maybe didn't get any other responses, and that gets carried forward. We assume that represents, the consensus or the majority of the survey. Brett, this is a question for you. With the new website, you said that we are now updating over the Virginia Economic Development Partnership the sites so that they're actually getting now in a timely fashion the sites that we have available here in the county. Is that correct?
Correct.
Good, because I know for the longest kind of time we weren't doing that, so that's great. And so we're going to have that link on our website to the Virginia Economic Development Partnership and share, I suppose, the same information as it regards the sites, the locations, availability of water, sewer.
Yeah, correct. So instead of maintaining two separate ones, we'll link off of theirs. We will have a few additional sites. VEDP's, the state is not interested in retail. That's very local. They're more interested in commercial, office, manufacturing, things that have more of a state impact. So if we have a property that's strictly retail, the state will not list it. So I'd say the vast majority of it will be the same, but if we have a property maybe that's retail, that's more local interest, we'll make sure that's on our website because that's not going to show up on the state. But otherwise, we'll mirror theirs so it updates.
You'll mirror
stays the
theirs
same.
and then add in anything that they don't post.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mrs. Nordick?
Thank you. John, I guess the first one's for you. I've been to Richmond Hill many times and spoke into a microphone down there and you were up here, and I still can't get used to the other way around. Thanks again for your service to the Commonwealth. My question is a request, I suppose. When you're asking businesses, could you sort of take the temperature and get consensus on, we just raised utility rates, and basically water rates and water testing is still relatively new, and I'd like to know the impact on businesses and whether that's, really put a hard pinch on them, or, oh, it's no big deal, we understand, or whatever their response is. If we weren't planning on doing that, I would like to zero in a little bit on the water end of it, both testing and utilities, if that's okay.
I think that can be added to the questionnaire.
Great, thank you. And then the other one, either one of you, Brett, maybe, sites. Are we including empty space in, let's say, the industrial park in my district, or some buildings that perpetually have for lease signs on them for the last 5 or 6 years? Is that included when you say sites?
Yep, correct. So the sites would be one, vacant buildings. If there's a commercial or industrial building available for sale or lease, that's on there. Also sites, if there's a site, might be pad ready, like Oak Bridge, might have roads and utilities. It
Right.
also might just be land that's zoned but does have a seller actively marketing it. So if there's a piece of commercially zoned property, but the property owner is not really interested in selling it right now, or they're not talking to us, we're not putting those on there. They are everything on there. If somebody came forward, there is either a property owner willing to sell or a broker representing it. So we've got those in there. We've gone up and down 60, gotten the names off all the signs and called them and said, give us all your information, we'll put it in there. So a few of those I think we're still waiting for a response from, or waiting for the broker to get us the information on that property. But we're trying to get all those in there. So
Yeah,
we
that's
should have
exactly
some
what I
from Oak
wanted.
Bridge.
You just defined what a site means. That's perfect. Thank you.
Mr. Milton?
Just a couple quick comments, John. First of all, thank you and all of your board members for the hard work that you guys put in, because I know y'all met quite frequently and really rolled your sleeves up to try to create a solid foundation for economic development. I think some people maybe were frustrated that things haven't moved on as fast, but building a foundation is probably the most important thing that can be done, because without a good foundation, the whole system will crumble. I think you're spot on. Broadband, housing affordability, continuing education is probably three of the pinnacle things that all of us should be focused on. I remember speaking with a business owner who was making $1 million expansion in this county, and I said, wow, what an investment you're making. Are you a little nervous? He said, not about the money that I'm borrowing from the bank, but about finding qualified workers to run these businesses. So that is definitely a concern of any business. In your comment about the attendance, the comp plan and the changes, I see that as a very integral part, along with the RC work that we need to do. I had a gentleman say to me today, this proposed RC changes, how is that really beneficial to a small business? If you're going to force combinations of parcels, a small business owner may not be able to do those things. And with the current RC, you would have the ability as a small business operator to start up a business, probably with less investment than if you changed RC as a whole. So we have a lot of work to do, but I know this board's committed to doing it, and we're going to get there together. So thank you for what y'all are doing. And
Thank you.
I think you're spot on with what you said. Thank you.
Ms. Capel?
Yes. I'll also invite each of you, you should have already received the email, the Chamber is partnering with the county to have their Business Appreciation Breakfast next week. It's a great firsthand opportunity for you to speak to business owners in this county. It's at the county seat, Wednesday at 7:30, so love to see you all there. We also meet monthly at the Chamber there, another great opportunity to speak firsthand to any business owners.
Thank you.
One quick follow-up. I did have at least 6 to 7 businesses that I've spoken with in the county say that Roxanne Salerno has done a wonderful job. Kudos to your staff, reaching out to and introducing herself and asking what she can do and how they can help grow and what are the issues. So kudos to Roxanne and the work that she's done already. Thank you.
Any closing comments from you gentlemen?
Mr. Chairman, I would just say we're at a time of opportunity. If you saw the latest CoStar report here in the Richmond metropolitan area, there is a dearth of business space, office business space in this entire region. They can't even find 20,000 square foot places downtown. And I would think that for Powhatan County, that certainly breeds some opportunity for us.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Brett, any final comments?
No, we're just excited to, take this on and, this year launch some of these efforts and, see how they'll pay off for the county. And yeah, we're thrilled with Roxanne Salerno, our economic development staff. She's doing a great job really helping us move some of these things forward. So we're looking forward to it.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being with us tonight. Mr. Benusa, thanks for coming out. Appreciate it. We have a time-sensitive issue. We're going to move to item number 12 on the agenda, the public hearings. The first is a continuation of a public hearing on the ordinance to deal with the first part of the comp plan. We can approach this from either of two ways. I'm going to move that we have the public hearing, that we continue the public hearing, but that we defer until June the 27th, agreement on the final document. That's the last one of our workshops. And after that, we would be presenting that document as a plan to go forward for public consumption. So we can go either of two ways. We can try to go through this line by line tonight, or we can defer this till June 27th. Staff has taken all of our issues and put it into the proposal they put in front of us. If there are others, then we need to put those in the plan before we have the final public hearing. Any proposals on how to move forward on this?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
it was my understanding that we were going to get the data, that we were going to have a workshop to really roll our sleeves up and digest and talk about the RC. This is actually an ordinance change. It's not the comprehensive plan. This is ordinance.
Right.
And so I thought we were going to have a workshop in June to be able to take this, what staff has brought to us based upon the questions we asked at our last meeting on, comparisons of architectural standards and things like that in other localities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and then be able to have a workshop. My question to us is if we're going to have the workshop, and I think we've got one on June 11th,
Yeah.
are we going to be ready to move on this? And I don't want to delay this and slow this down at all, but will we be ready on the 27th? Or
On the 11th.
Well, on the 11th would be the workshop, but then you're talking about bringing it back with a public hearing on the 27th, and I'm not sure if we're going to be ready to do it then let's do it. But if we're not, then let's not mislead the public and have it back on another public hearing on it when we're not ready to act on it. That's my only.
Just a point of information for the board. The 11th is a workshop, and the 27th is also a workshop. So it's really the 25th that we have the next regular board meeting. So we have 2 workshops scheduled in June so far.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
seems like you got two things going on concurrently. One is the ordinance change, as Mr. Melton said, and the other issue is the comprehensive plan. The first feeds into the latter. So we're going to be having the meeting on the 11th, and I assume then we had a workshop just recently where we had given instructions to staff to carry forward. We had the issue of what is nodal development, what was the interpretation of that, and we had a different interpretation than what staff had provided that night. The other issue was looking at the Timmons report and looking at the future land use map as it pertained to Route 60 and looking at the different appendices that were provided with the Timmons report, which dove into the major zoning districts that are on Route 60. It was the Village Town Center, Commerce Centers, residential, et cetera. And they had comments, related to those major districts in terms of the feasibility and likelihood of those, coming to fruition. So we had asked for staff to come back after taking a look at the Timmons report and their comments as it related to our future land use map and the comprehensive plan today. So I'd like to see those things provided going into the workshop. I think it's important that if we're going to be updating the comprehensive plan And most importantly, you need to know what your future land use map is going to look like. So we're going to have to decide, one, and we're going to be discussing in closed session tonight, water. So whatever we do with future land use map, water plays an integral part. So I'm going to be interested in learning more tonight in closed session about where we're going with water. And then the next issue will be when we have the discussion about what do we want to see on Route 60 with the future land use map, and then within that future land use map, how are we going to address the RC zoning district that we have today and the transition districts that the Planning Commission has already given us their recommendations. And so we've had one workshop where we've come back and we've asked for a little bit more information. So I don't know if you're going to be ready for, going back to Mr. Melton's point, I don't know if you're going to be ready for the meeting on the, what was it, 25th, Ted?
The 25th is the board meeting.
It's the board meeting that the EDA is going to be attending. I think it's good that they would attend because we might have more discussion that night, but I'm not sure we're going to be ready for the adoption of the plan. And I don't know where our discussions are going the 11th with the future land use map, water and Route 60, et cetera, and RC. So it may take 2 workshops to get through those things. That's my 2 cents, Mr.
Is
Chairman.
that the consensus? I know that we have a standing rule that we're not going to hurry this thing unnecessarily, even though people get irritated at us for taking so long. But there's got to be a balance between driving to closure on the one hand and making sure that we don't do things precipitously on the other. And that's what we're after right now. So it sounds like at this juncture, we ought not to even attempt to nail down a finished date. We take as many workshops as necessary to get it out in the open.
Well, I know, I don't want it open-ended. I think we need to force ourselves, you know, to be able to make a decision. I would say a July timeframe. That gives us the rest of this month and all of June and most of July. But we force ourselves to be ready to make a decision, if nothing else, on your RC proposed ordinance changes in support. As Mr. Williams said, it's all based in land use map. It's all intricately tied together. And, you know, I just think leaving it open-ended, not that I don't want to kick the can down the road, because we do need to make decisions. Our business community developers are probably wondering where we're going, and let's make decisions that are best, but get the facts. And I'd like to see something in July.
Any other comments, Larry?
Thank you. Could you tell? While Nero fiddled, Rome burned, and while we fiddle around, Powhatan develops, I guess is my comment. The comp plan is dated 2010. We should have been, we as in the county and board at the time, should have been updating that thing. It's now 2018. We should have been updating it in 2015 or soon thereafter. There's been a lot of delays, and no, we don't want to rush it and come out with a lousy product. So perhaps one thing we could do is re-emphasize to staff, and I'm speaking as a board, maybe we should re-emphasize to staff to make sure we're following the ordinances that are on the books currently for multi-building development. And perhaps we should take those standards, which are basically architectural landscape type standards, you know what I'm talking about, where they should have architectural matching, they shouldn't be using primary colors, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe we should sort of massage that ordinance to include single building development, because the purpose of the Planning Commission, they're pushing us, and I don't blame them. We've been really, really, really slow. They are trying to come up with a way of making sure that we don't keep developing in a hodgepodge quilt fashion. So there's an immediate goal, and then there's the comp plan and getting all the future land use map right and all that. That's a longer, bigger piece. So can we maybe go two-track here? Maybe this is a Ted question, where we re-emphasize the ordinances, the laws that are already on the books, and make sure we're following those. Maybe we can overlap the multi-building to the single building, because I think that's the intent, and then work on this big project of a comprehensive plan, et cetera. Do you understand where I'm going with that, Mr. Chairman? Thank you.
Mr. Voorhees, your response to the
Well,
dual
we'd certainly,
track?
certainly be willing to have some conversation with the board. I think we would need to have some back and forth discussion rather than just take that suggestion and then try to implement it. Because some of the challenges we have are with the level of subjectivity and interpretation. And so without dialogue, we might not implement what is desired. So I would recommend that if we want to do something like that, that we either try to work it into the topics of the upcoming work sessions, or we add some more work sessions. That's one comment. Another comment is that I do understand that on the architectural standards piece, the Planning Commission is taking up the suggestion of unifying all the architectural standards across the districts, because we have some differences between some of the non-residential districts, and so there's just the notion of putting them together. That may make it easier, but yet again, there are elements there that are subjective, or if they're not subjective, we have differing opinions about what certain things mean. So having dialogue, I think, is the only way we're going to get that worked out.
Agree in principle, and as I said, this is a board decision. As a compromise, can we save a little chunk of time to talk about that ordinance at the workshop, like Ted just suggested? And I think we can even stay away from the subjective stuff, because that tends to get murky. But there are clear-cut, already on the book laws. For example, no primary colors. That's pretty straightforward. And we haven't been following that as a county. So can we at least take a look at that little piece and see if we can transfer that over to include all development instead of just multi-building? That's my point. So I'm trying to keep it small.
Right, you're trying to chunk it.
Mr. Chairman.
Hold on a minute. I'm sorry, David.
Mr. Norvig just threw out the thing about the architectural standards and primary colors. Let me back up. The Planning Commission passed last meeting where, and it'll be coming to us, where they said, you're going to have the same development setback standards for RC that you would have for any of the growth zoning districts. That's what they passed last meeting. So that was an attempt to get at the lesser standards that you see in RC. At the meeting, a workshop on June 11th, I'm going to be giving y'all a proposal working backwards that I think addresses the problems that we've had with RC, the problems that we've had with development standards, and the issues that were associated with existing development, and the issue about development rights for people who have been paying taxes in the county for the RC property that they own today. The proposal I'll bring, I think, will meet all the issues that we've been talking about. And I think that will be a step forward. I really do. That will give us some path forward with, some modification, changes, recommendations, and discussion to lead us into the other issue is what are the zoning districts that you want on the future land use map for Route 60? Now, I pointed out to staff last meeting, we've got zoning districts that are, on Route 60 that we know all parcels, for example, aren't going to be commerce centers. And I read the description from the comprehensive plan, which is different from what's going to probably happen with people rezoning to commerce centers. That's really the only commercial option you have on Route 60 is commerce centers today. So we need to do one of two things. We either need to change the narrative in the comprehensive plan which describes commerce centers, or come up with another commercial zoning district that more accurately reflects on what we're going to see coming in on Route 60. So that needs to be addressed. And that was one of the things that I brought to y'all's attention last meeting that we need to address going forward. So I don't think this thing is as tough as, as we've made it out to be. I really don't. I think we can get it done. And again, with working backwards, what is it that we want to accomplish? Staff did a very good job with the Planning Commission last meeting presenting to us the problems that we had on Route 60 with RC. Brett and Andrew and Karen Carmack did a very good job of coming forward with a basis for their recommendations. I'm going to build on what they've provided and come forward with my recommendations, which I think will get us to where we need to go on Route 60, addressing all the issues that they were taking into account. So I think if we can take care of the issue about water, what we want to see the future land use map look like, particularly on Route 60, resolve the RC issue, that leads us right into the comprehensive plan. I think it gets easy after that, or gets less difficult. What do you think?
David, when is your proposal going to be ready for prime time?
I can give it to you now if you want me to.
No. How about the 11th?
Absolutely.
Target the 11th?
Yes, I thought I said that.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
all right.
He did.
Yes.
All right. So trying to split the baby a la Solomon, I'm still looking for a date by which we can look ourselves in the mirror and say, we're going to do this by this such and such a date. Is it August or September?
Why don't you do this, Mr. Chairman, as a recommendation? Set August, September, August/September, knowing that you want to get it, we want to get it done. All of us are anxious to get it done. I mean, I don't want to come to every meeting, meeting after meeting and just, talk about comp plans and zoning districts and RC. I think we can get there in the fall. In terms of, are we there in terms of saying it's a specific date in August or a specific date in September? I'm not sure. I don't think so. But if we have that target frame of it happening in that period of time, I think that accomplishes our purpose.
Agreement?
Mr. Chairman, I think for the public's standpoint, we had a public hearing that we were going to have tonight. We left the public hearing open from the last meeting, so I think we should set a date, say we're going to continue this public hearing till August 20, whatever it is, meeting, so that people know that we will discuss it and deal with it at that time or continue. But I don't think, I hear Mr. Norvig's comments, and David, I'm looking forward to you and I briefly have talked about it a little bit. I'm looking forward to your stuff on the 11th. Larry, maybe this, maybe put your particulars down and have them ready, so that if they don't get addressed, that we can roll our sleeves up and address the issues that you feel that need to be addressed in the immediate needs.
So can we agree to David's proposal that we slash August and September as a rough idea when we're going to put this in front of the public for the final hearing? Just a consensus. We can always change our mind, but something to force our hands. I hear you, Bill, you want to go faster?
No. I just think it needs to be a date.
If we're saying-
we're going to have a public hearing on this date.
If we're saying August/September and the meeting's toward the end of August, why don't we just put a date to it, and that would be the August
All right,
meeting?
when's our date to August?
27th.
So let's do this. Let's say we're going to try to do this on August the 27th, with the understanding that if we're not ready, we go to September. Can you live with that?
I just have a question. If you're going to advertise and tell the public that you're going to do it on a certain date in August, and then you don't do it, have you helped or does it hurt? Because I can tell you right now, if I have outstanding issues where, we get into it and we need additional information from wherever, I'm not going to vote for it. We're going to resolve the issues and then, then we'll put the product out there. But if you put a date out there and you tell people you're going to do it and you're not ready, have you, again, given the public a false expectation that, we will have done everything we needed to do?
Well, I assume the August 27th date presupposes that the run-up to that and the workshops ahead of that will have given an opportunity to ask the kind of questions and deal with the objections you might or anyone else might have. That was my assumption.
When do you advertise that date?
2 weeks ahead, so it'd be August the 14th or so thereabout. So can we agree to this? August the 27th is our target date with a clear understanding that we're not going to do anything that we don't agree with. At least we have something to force our hand. David, can you live with it?
With the caveat again.
Understand.
With the caveat once again, if we're not ready, if it's 2 weeks out, when it gets ready to be advertised, and I still don't have the information I need, resolution on whatever the issue is, I won't be supporting it.
Understand. Understand. Mr. Voorhees?
Just a question for clarification. I want to be really clear. Is that the goal for a public hearing on the entire comprehensive plan or just on this modification to the transition districts, which is the subject of this hearing? Just want to be clear that we all are talking about the same thing.
That's a good question.
I see, this public hearing is for an ordinance change. It does not have to do with the comprehensive plan. While they are intertwined together, that's why,
Okay, so I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought you were doing both together.
What-
I
we
thought that
haven't-
this was going to be for the comp plan, which
we
would
haven't
equal-
advertised that we're going to have a public hearing. We want to do community meetings. Once we've figured out exactly what we're going to do with the comp plan, we want to have some community
So this is
meetings.
just for the ordinance?
So this is just
Oh,
the
yeah.
ordinance.
I'm fine.
Okay.
I'm fine.
Does that satisfy?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So we did say we were going to have and advertise that we were going to have a public hearing, so I'm going to open the public hearing. If you wish to address what you have already read in the package for tonight with any issues that you have of what's in there, please come forward and speak to us. This is part of the process of us learning more about what the public wants. Anyone wish to address the board on what you saw in the package thus far? Mr. Cofer, good to see you.
Good to see y'all, sir. My name is Woody Cofer, Powhatan, Virginia, and I have some concerns about what y'all were voting on tonight, and I'm glad you postponed it. You notice that if you were to pass it tonight, that majority, not all of it, but all the majority of the businesses on Route 60 will be non-conforming. And I think you're gonna run into a problem by having all of them being non-conforming. You take your convenience stores like the Red Barn, Bell Road to the Harris Place, Cheeks and Peace Cross from that, and Cheetah's Flat Drop, they'll not be allowed in that district. You're not allowing those to be in that district. They have to be in another, I'm talking about the way they're zoned today, in these districts on Route 60 right now, as they are zoned. They're not allowed. Another thing is these restaurants, you're not allowing in the restaurants what is on 60 right now under this new ordinance. And a good example is over at Academy Road, they moved the liquor store over. Some of y'all may know about it, I do. They moved it from Suite B to Suite C and D. Under this new ordinance, they got to get a CUP before they can move. So there's a lot of it in there that I think you're making people non-conforming. I don't want to say it, but you probably should just rezone everything on 60 to one thing. Don't make them all non-conforming today.
Be careful what you wish for.
That's right, because you can run the problem be if you're going to make everything non-conforming, and you will be for all the convenience stores, service agents and whatnot. Under today's zoning on Route 60, that'd be illegal today, but it won't be under this new ordinance.
All right.
So I think
Correct.
y'all may want to consider that.
Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else wish to address the board on this issue? Seeing no one come forward, I'll close the public hearing on this particular ordinance.
Mr. Chairman, did you want to close it, or do you want to continue it till the
I continue
August?
the public hearing, you're right. I do not close the public hearing. I continue the public hearing so we can continue to have them in the future,
Till
like we have
August.
tonight.
Till August 27th?
Right. Moving on to item 12B.
Chairman?
You need a motion to defer this till August 27th.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Officially deferred. Item 12B, thank you, Tom. 12B, staff.
This one at your, excuse me, this one at your last meeting, you had deferred. At that time, we were waiting for DEQ to review our proposal for this alternative inspection program for erosion and sediment control. DEQ is still reviewing that. They had to take it to their central Richmond office and have some of the higher-up staff look at this, and they're still reviewing it. So staff would recommend deferral again, and as soon as DEQ finishes their review, assuming it's favorable, we'll bring it back for
A
adoption.
motion, please.
I'll make a motion, we defer it not till June. Let's give 2 months, so we're not putting it in front of the public and then wondering whether we're gonna vote on it. Let's give DEQ a little bit more time to work on it. So let's defer it till our July meeting.
Tom?
Well, the first question is, we continue this public hearing, so you need to open your public hearing again.
That's true.
You're not obligated to keep the public hearing open. You can defer a decision without keeping the public hearing open, but you need to open the public hearing tonight since it's on the agenda, just in case somebody did come to speak.
I open the public hearing on this issue. If you wish to address this issue, come forward, give us your name. Seeing no one come forward, I close the public hearing. Would you make your motion
I'll make a
again?
motion, we keep the public hearing open till our July meeting, so that when, maybe we'll have something the public can read and be able to speak to when it comes before us.
The public understand what's happening here. We're waiting for DEQ to give us a feedback on a proposal we have made to work by their rules, and they've not given us an answer yet. That's why it continues to pop up on the agenda. A second to this motion?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So be it. Item 12C, Mr. Nolan.
Yes, sir. This is an ordinance change to allow the county to have a mandate where you will register your alarm within 30 days with us being the sheriff's office and designee will be Public Safety Communications. The individual will have access to that form on the county webpage, and he or she or residents will be required to make sure that they comply. If they don't comply, after 30 days, there will be a fine, and subject to a subsequent fine should they continue to be a delinquent on the activations of alarms. Alarms, and the reason we're looking at this is the ordinances were enacted in the 90s. No changes have been made. What we want to do, we understand there's 888 alarm activations last year. Each alarm takes about 2.5 minutes to process. It's very important for the public safety responders to go with accurate information, key holder information about who was in your house, who should be in your house, and why, and who has access to the house. This form provides all that information. Right now, we don't have that information. The information has not been obtained or not been tracked. Come July 1, we'll have a better system. We'll have a system will be able to do so, and we'll have the ability to make sure that we have all that information at our fingertips. In addition to that, there's a new program called the ASAP, the PSAP. And what that allows you to do, it has the ability to take an automated system and electronically send it to the 911 center without any human interaction. Again, I repeat, it takes 2.5 minutes on an average for an alarm company to call us, the 911 center, and give us the 123 Elm Street rear door activation. The key holder has not been contacted. So this is a predecessor to that, allowing us to make sure that we have the information and preparedness for that new system.
Questions of staff? Are other localities doing something similar?
Yes, sir. We actually were able to find this in Chesterfield, and I know the city of Richmond has something similar.
And in one sentence, tell us what the purpose of it is again?
The purpose is allow us to have accurate information in our database to ensure that citizens and the public safety responders know who should be there and who to contact should there's an activation of alarm. And right now we don't have a database that's accurate or up to date. And the incentive is now to make sure that people understand it, comply. If they don't comply, they may be exposed to a penalty.
That's 8 sentences.
Sorry. But I couldn't do it.
Comments, gentlemen? Ms. Cabell? You got a lot of furrowed brows up here, I think.
Okay.
Public hearing.
Ms. Cabell?
But
Do you want to say something?
Public hearing first?
You can.
Yeah, okay.
I'll open the public hearing on this issue. If you wish to speak to it, come forward, please. Identify yourself for us. Seeing no one come forward, I'll close the public hearing on this issue. So continue to question staff, please.
So Tom, just for clarity, I just want to, so if a deputy was to show up at a residence, you would have gotten a call from the alarm company that says, alarm at such and such address has been activated, and key holder hasn't been noticed, and the key holder's name is Peter Jones. And so the deputy gets there, and if Peter Jones is not there, and some guy's name is Bob Smith, then he would assume that Bob Smith's not supposed to be there. Would this help with that?
What happens often in the in exchange of information from the alarm company, mobile numbers are provided. Sometimes we have to ask for that information. It extends the conversation. We don't necessarily have to extend the conversation because we have it at our fingertips. The mobile numbers can be somewhat private, and you do have to ask for that information.
Does this fit in with your continuous improvement issue about trying to cut down the amount of time and response?
Yes, sir. It's an opportunity for us to have information instantaneously, where right now we don't have that information. And the other problem we have is when the alarm is not registered, we go into alarms, and we're going to alarms that potentially have a false alarm. If we have a false alarm and continue to have false alarms, we want to know, let the person know that the compliance is what we want. We don't want, nobody wants a punishment. We want compliance. And so that we don't let the key holder know that, oh, by the way, we had a false activation. Maybe we can contact them and say, by the way, are you aware this has gone on twice now in 180 days? Can you fix this alarm? Can you tell us what's going on with that? And we can take proactive measures.
Other
Chairman.
comments? David?
Tom, let me see if I understand. If I have an alarm system, I have to now register with you.
That's correct.
How are you going to get the word out to everybody in this county?
There's several ways of doing it. One was posted in the course of Powhatan today, but another way of doing this, there's alarm companies right now that I have access to, 21 different emails and phone numbers that I asked Ms. Bonnie and others to go ahead and contact them upon approval of this amendment and let them know, can you let all your customers know in the county of Powhatan, we now have an amended ordinance that requires you to register. So we'll go ahead and do a mass mailing of them, direct mailing to them, and of course do also mailing through the public notice through the Powhatan Today and any other publication we can use, and the website.
I hope I'm wrong, but I think you're in for a long haul on getting people registered. You know, because I just tell you from experience, people, you know, if they get something in the mail, they're going to treat it, you know, a lot of times it gets thrown as junk mail. I see Angie Brayson, you do the same thing I did.
I understand your concern, and I've shared some of your concerns. Often we'll find out about these alarms when we actually go there and we don't have any information about it. What will happen is that most likely the compliance will be after the fact for us.
Well, but there won't be any penalty for the homeowner or anything
No,
like that?
no,
Okay.
they have 30 days.
Okay. Thank you.
Sheriff, Sheriff or Chief, do you have anything to add to this request?
The process just makes it a lot easier when the alarms are received. Once an alarm is in the system, then the alarm company either just sends, like you said, a digital message straight into our CAD system, which is a link that Tom's working on, or they just call up and say, I have alarm number 123. 123, it fills out all the information of where the alarm is, the name of the person, the telephone numbers, everything, boom, it's ready to go. So that gives us all that information directly and right away by having the alarms registered into the system.
Okay. Sheriff?
Yeah, what they said, long and short of it is, that most of the compliance that David was talking about is gonna happen after we respond. We have quite a number of properties where the key holder information is dated, and this will give us an opportunity to have people send us in new information. So it's gonna take a long time, but if we continue doing it wrong, it's just gonna take longer when we have to fix it. So sooner or later, we gotta start fixing it, that's all.
Tom, is there a reason not to do this?
Not to my knowledge, sir. No, we're placing an opportunity for awareness. It's not for punishment. It's more of awareness and opportunity for us to get better. And just to add to what Jamie Timberlake has suggested, that he can offer a link, and when he plays out his tax letters to businesses, awareness to that as well. And that's another opportunity for us to get the awareness campaign out there.
Sheriff?
The important thing is, it doesn't affect their policies on false alarms and things like that. This is not going to be addressed in that issue there. So the fine schedule and the other items that y'all passed in the past are not affected by this. I'll still be able to work with the public when they hardship cases, you know, power outages, things like that, to make sure they're not fined. So it won't affect that.
Tom, security of the information?
Information will be sent to us directly to the Powhatan PSAP 911 Center. That information will be only accessible to our communication officers, and that will be, the records will be sent back as approved to the homeowner and or business to let them know that they have approved permit. There's no other need for sharing of information to anyone else.
Any final questions or comments? Ted?
Just a question, please.
Yes, sir.
No,
Public
ma'am.
hearing.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. We don't have we're not open public yet. We're still talking to staff. That's all right.
So if I'm an existing alarm contractor, they'll be notified, and they will have 30 days to register then, and if they don't, then we're gonna fine them $25?
What happens in this situation is you're saying you're an existing alarm company or your business is?
I have an existing alarm service at my house.
Yes,
And you're gonna notify, and I'll have the chance in the 30 days. After 30 days, if I don't notify.
You may be exposed to that penalty.
Okay.
Yeah, we replaced we originally had the word shall be assessed, and we replaced it with may be assessed so that they have discretion on that.
And it's sheriff, and then.
Okay.
Doesn't
And then if you're a new subscriber, then reading this, you would then, then you would have 30 days to register. I could see a new subscriber maybe being held to a little bit different standard than somebody that's, you know.
Yes.
And what I don't want is people to think that this is just another way that the county's gonna start giving us another fee or, you know, or whatever. That there's a purpose behind this, and we're not interested in collecting the $25. You know, that we just wanna have data and we can respond better and blah, 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 blah.
I can promise you that these conversations will take place with the sheriff and any other staff, and if it happens, high discretion will be used before a fine goes out.
Ted?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to clarify that we already have an ordinance in place dealing with this matter. This is an amendment. So if the thought was that we were adopting something from whole cloth about registration that would be inconsistent with our community values, that's not the case. We do have a registration requirement. It's just poorly enforced, and we don't have any kind of fine or fee at this point, so we'd be kind of going to the general you know, fine that you find in the code. So this helps clarify and also set some time limits of expectation. Operationally, what we envisioned is that we would do an information campaign to try to encourage registration, that we would notify businesses, alarm companies, and citizens that 30 days is the expectation to get registered if you have a new one. And then if you don't, if you have an alarm that happens, so we get the alarm coming into the center, and you're not registered, then we would send you a notice saying, hey, we just got your fire alarm, whether it was a false alarm or a real alarm, a burglar alarm, false or regular. We would send you a notice saying, hey, this incident happened, but we also need you to fill out this registration form that clarifies next time, you know, who's the key holder, what's your company, and all that sort of thing. So we're expecting you to kind of come up to speed within 30 days of the incident. If you don't, we might give you a $25 service fee for failing to register. It gives us that authority. Right now, we don't really have clarity around what we might charge you based on a misdemeanor or some other failure to comply with the existing ordinance.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Sheriff, did you have something more to say?
People are thinking more burglar alarms. I'm sorry, I'm People are constantly dwelling on burglar alarms. A lot of people out here have panic alarms, and this is why it's important to us. When you have a panic alarm, you've fallen down, etc., we need the key holder who was, if they trust them that much, they probably know if you're on vacation, so we don't have to break into your house. That's, because we get a panic alarm, you're not at home, but your car's at home, or there's various other, we're gonna break into your home. To find out whether you're alive or hurt or whatever. So that's the more important issue rather than, we can tell whether your house been broken into, but we can't tell whether you're laying inside and needing help. So if we have somebody trusted we can call and it's on record, it will speed up the process and may make the difference between you going to the hospital or not. No, so.
Thank you, Sheriff. Any final questions or comments?
Yes, sir.
Wait a minute, please.
You will get a chance to speak. It's just procedure.
Tom.
We go in order.
May I reopen the public hearing?
With the consensus of the board, if you
With the
make a
consensus
motion.
of the board, to allow the public hearing to be reopened.
That's
I
fine.
hereby reopen the public hearing. Now, ma'am, please come forward.
And then I have a question afterwards.
Take your time.
Nothing to be nervous about.
I used to go to Buckingham. Thank you. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Patricia Osborne Whitaker. I live in Buckingham, but I also pay taxes in Paladin. I'm S.C. Osborne's oldest daughter. I used to live on Rocky Ford Road. To address the matter with the alarms, is this a private alarm system? Because I have an alarm system. And in Buckingham, when we are at the river, a ladybug will go across the motion detector in the sunroom. The officers come, investigate the house. I don't have any of this modern technology. I don't want any. So they come out, and we have a contract through Ellerton Security. And the officers in Buckingham will leave a message on the answer machine telling us they have been out there, and when we get back, we know. And it tells us on the panel, you know, what room it was in. But if you find people for a ladybug, because we have ladybugs, I mean big time. So how does this fine work? I mean, the Buckingham's been out to my house several times, bukus of times, all hours of the night or whatever. But the ladybug thing, and it goes across, and they come out there, and I'll tell you something else. Lightning will set them off, and you do not know about it until you get home. So are we going to get fined? We're already paying private security man, and the rules and regulations are through them. So I didn't understand what this guy was talking about, public or private. I mean, they're talking about, you know, is it for the businesses, or is this for every landowner, for the sheriff to come out to take it? Are they going to fine us every time? I mean, I'd like to know this, because there's not a whole lot you can do about ladybugs or the lightning as far as that goes. So I don't think that should even be addressed. I think it should go to your security company for that, and let them charge you if the county does not, you know, has problems with it. And another thing, with the road in Buckingham, I go to the meetings in Buckingham. They always have a VDOT man there, and they always have a person that tells you what's going on with the law enforcement officers. And I think, really and truly, everything's been mentioned here tonight, as far as I can see. It really depends on all of them. It depends on VDOT, and it depends on the law enforcement, with everything y'all have discussed. I mean, the crime situation, the public housing, everything, the roads. I was coming down today on 60 from Buckingham. Okay, there was a blacktop lineman going on. Do you know that the traffic was so far, it was from 522 all the way almost to the county line?
Ms.
on one
Whitaker,
side of the road. And the man took.
you're supposed to be talking about the alarm system.
Yes, okay, I'm sorry. But there was a woman following too close and you had an accident. I mean, the two situations that need to be addressed here with the whole 9 yards is VDOT and the law enforcement officers. But anyway, I said my piece. Thank you for listening and understand.
Thank you, Ms. Whitaker. Anyone else wish to address the board on this issue?
Address the board. I just want to ask a question. What I read, this is referring to burglary. Excuse me, I'm Connie Harris. I live at 1470 Huguenot Trail. It refers to burglary and robbery alarm systems, and then somebody mentioned fire alarms. Is it all alarm systems or just burglary and robbery alarm systems?
All.
All systems. And who will have access to this private information?
Same people that have access to it now, the people in their 911 command center, emergency center.
The 911 people are given the address. When the 911 people call, when my alarm goes off and they call 911, they give them the address.
Tom, do you want to address this issue?
Alarm companies can provide us a lot of information upon request. They can give us the location of the alarm, the key holder, and sometimes a phone number. That conversation can continue between a minute and 3 minutes, depending on how much information we have to ask or what we need to know. So they will provide it, but it does extend the conversation, and we would rather shorten up the conversation to provide the officer and/or fire out there quicker. Yes, yes.
So the information is available one way or the other. This is just going to speed it up by 2.5 minutes.
That's what we hope, sir, yes. And when we actually have the alarm, automated security alarm protocol in place, which we hope to have in 2019, that would be even quicker.
Okay. Anybody else wish to address the board on this issue? Seeing no one come forward, I close the public comment period on this issue. What's the will of the board?
Mr. Norvig had some comments he wanted to make.
Sorry, Mr. Norvig, comment?
I was just going to make a comment. Tom, you and I have had many productive talks. Thanks for, and I don't have a question or anything. If you want to be comfortable, that's fine.
I'll stand up.
And I, you've done so much. But I'm going to give my opinion. I don't like the idea of a fine. I do like the idea of all the rest you talked about, which is basically an aggressive public campaign, put out letters, emails, et cetera, to let everybody know, hey, you need to be doing this. And I understand that fines can make some people comply that maybe otherwise wouldn't. It'll offend others, and you're still not going to reach, as Mr. Williams pointed out, you're going to have trouble reaching 100% of the people. And if I'm one of those however many percent that you didn't reach, and I was just going about my business, working and going to the grocery store, and all of a sudden I get a fine, I don't know. So part of the solution that I would say is what Mr. Voorhees was saying about the procedures that are intended seem pretty benign. That's a good thing. They seem pretty common sense. So if we can write that intention into actual policy or better procedure, I think that would go a long way. I think we'd be curing 95% of this issue without a fine. Now, mind you, I am aware, and I think the public should be aware, we do have an ordinance now that says if you have 3 false alarms, strike 3, you do get a fine for having the fire and rescue or sheriff's office respond, because it does cost money. So I'm not, that end I understand. And, there are things like ladybugs and thunderclaps and whatever, that set off alarms. But if we're starting to get 4, 5, 6, yeah, that's why we have a penalty there. So I'm in favor of what you're doing. I'm not ready to move to fining people for not complying. But thank you for your hard work, though. The whole idea of it makes sense.
Other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to agree with Mr. Norvick. The person that's going to be affected is the person that didn't register, because they're the ones that are delaying your service, your call getting there by 2 minutes. Is that correct, Tom?
Potentially, yes, sir.
So if they choose not to do it, they're hurting themselves.
This is true.
So even though we've got the ordinance on the books, and even though we've changed it from shall to may, I just, it has an aura to it that, you know, we're being punitive to people if you don't do something. You know, think of the amount of time we've taken to discuss this tonight. Now, do you think that the average person is going to not have questions and is not going to be intimidated by the prospect of a fine? I think they will. I think they will. I think there's many opportunities for misinterpretation of what we're trying to do here tonight. So I'm like Mr. Norvick, I'm not comfortable with the fine.
Mr. Chairman, can we propose that we,
Is this your motion?
yes, propose that we remove the fine language from this and pass this and work, and then have the sheriff and Tom report back to us on the number of, you know, registers that we have and how many are outstanding, so to speak. Maybe we should also add, when a house goes through a change of ownership, maybe there could be some type of notification sent then that says, you know, by the way, if you have an alarm system, please register your alarm with the county. So there are ways to notify people to this, but I think it's a good thing to have them registered. So maybe we propose to have the changes without the fines sitting here.
Other comments? What's the will of the board?
I'll make a motion that we adopt this Article 3 of Chapter 38 without the fine detail, service fee of $25 up to $250, et cetera.
So delete paragraph D.
Pretty much, yes.
Paragraph D being the imposition of fines may.
Correct.
Okay.
Second,
I'll
second. Any final discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Mr.
Aye.
Chairman.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I did have a point of clarification for the attorney. Perhaps one of the things that prompted a question around the fee and fine is that the current ordinance does not have a fee or fine. So one of the questions we asked was, well, if it's an ordinance and there's no provision for what the penalty is for failure to comply, does that mean we defer to the general penalty in the Virginia Code? So that prompted, though, well, let's specify what this is, because the general penalty in the Code of Virginia is, I think, worse than that. I think it's like up to a year in jail and $500. We certainly have no intention of doing that. So my question for the board is to leave that from being the assumed default penalty. Do we need to put anything in here in lieu of the current language in D that says something like there shall be no fine or penalty for violation of this ordinance?
Well, in a case, if you took the fine language out, if we take paragraph D out, the way I would interpret enforcement, if we wanted, I mean, we wouldn't enforce it. If we tried to enforce it, I would go to court and ask for an order requiring them to comply. I can't imagine a court would actually penalize them, though, although Mr. Voorhees is correct, a court could technically find it to be a misdemeanor for violating the ordinance. In the real world, what would happen is the court, well, in the real world, what would happen is we'd never file a suit. But if we did, the court would probably just enter an order telling them to register their alarm system.
So to Mr. Voorhees' question, it sounds as if we don't need to do anything to replace D. Just leave it out.
What Mr. Voorhees is telling you is theoretically, the penalty could be worse. If we did ever take somebody to court, theoretically, a judge could fine them find them in being in a misdemeanor for violating county law.
That's two theoreticals and two ifs, and I don't think the intent of the
Well-
board is either one.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. In the real world, we're never going to go to court to try and force somebody
Call
to
the
register
question.
an
All
alarm.
those in favor of this ordinance with
Do you need to do a
paragraph?
roll call?
Roll call.
Roll call with paragraph D left out.
Aye.
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 Aye. Moving to item 10, bonded projects update. Mr. Voorhees?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a number of updates in your package. Things continue to move forward with good progress. Fortunately, all this rain hadn't really affected the courthouse project too much since it's already under roof, but it has affected the water tower project. That's getting a little bit close. The contractor has asked for an extension. We haven't granted it. The problem is the humidity makes the coating, we can't proceed with the coating until the humidity level drops to get good adhesion. There is a chance that we will not meet the deadline for fire protection at the middle school and may have to do a temporary fire watch or some other provision to kind of bridge over until it's placed in service. We're going to keep working on it, and certainly it will be in place well before we have students in the building, but there could be a little bit of transition where staff wants to move some things in there because I know the schools have planned early move-ins and transition time. We might have to have a fire watch for a piece of time, but that would be something that we would deal with our liquidated damages that the contractor would have to pay for. So I just want to give you an update on that, but other than that, we do think it's going to all come to a good conclusion, and certainly available to answer any questions you have on those projects.
Any questions on the bonded projects? I'm going to suggest we skip 10B and move directly to item 11, smart scale project selection. We don't need to do this, but we're going to open the public, we're going to reopen the public comment period after staff has finished its opportunity, its chance to present the plan. So Brett.
Good evening again. So the Smart Scale 2018 application process is opened up. So county staff has been working with VDOT staff to identify some potential projects. Localities, depending upon their population size, have a number of application slots. So our population allows us 4 slots to apply this round. The next round after this will be again in 2020. Staff has proposed a number of projects. We had the open house meeting last week for the public to come out, take a look, ask questions, and provide comments on those. So that was well attended. I think we had around 50 people come out. One date to add on here, page 81, have a kind of schedule of the smart scale process. One date to add there would be after you select your up to 4 projects, we will need to send those to the TPO, the Regional Transportation Agency staff, for them to look and make sure they believe they're consistent with the long-range regional plan. We as staff believe they are. If they concur, nothing more is needed. If they believe any of the things we're proposing are not consistent with the overall regional transportation plan, then they'll send those to the TPO, the Regional Transportation Body, in June for them to pass a resolution to allow us to apply. So that's one additional step that you don't see in here, but again, we'll carry forward whatever you have, and right now we don't foresee any issues with any of these projects being inconsistent with any regional plans. Just go through these here. Dorset Road and Anderson Highway, Route 60 intersection realignment. This is one that's been talked about and looked at, and some preliminary plans on the books for some time. It qualifies under smart scale because it is within one of our growth areas, the Route 60 East growth area. Staff believes it will probably score well in smart scale. Again, the smart scale program looks at the potential benefit of a project towards economic development, safety, accessibility, congestion mitigation, and overall environmental quality. This one would likely receive high marks, especially on the economic development, given that it's in a development area and there's a good deal of developable commercially zoned land within that vicinity. Generally received support from the open house that we had on this application, as well as some calls and emails that we received. Staff would be suggesting that's a good viable application. Then we have the Carter Gallier Extension Phase 2. This would connect Carter Gallier Boulevard in the South Creek development behind Walmart to Luckstone Road, essentially an extension of the Carter Gallier Road project that's currently under construction right now. This one also would qualify within the same growth area. Again, would likely receive high marks for the economic development score. The feedback we received from the public on this one, I would say 50-50. Half of the comments were in support, thought it would be a good project. Then the other half of the comments were either that Page Road, if this were to contribute more traffic to Page Road, a concern that that road might not be prepared to handle that, and then just some given general comments that they weren't sure it's really needed at this time. But staff does believe it would be a good, viable application. We had looked at a potential roundabout at Man Road and the Old Buckingham Road intersection. In talking with some of our emergency services staff, they had some concerns about that potential solution. I think that was echoed by the comments we received at the open house, a number of comments concerned about what the impact would be on fire trucks there. A number of citizens pointed out that they do believe there's some issues there. They also asked us to look at the Man Road and Route 60 intersection, and then also the intersection just east on Route 60 where the transfer station is. So at this time, I think staff's recommendation would be we don't move this forward as a Smart School application, but we do a wider study of that intersection, how it works with 60, the transfer station, and overall what we might do there, a little bigger picture. Then we have Jude's Ferry and Route 60, some improvements in front of the where you would turn to go to the school. That one again qualifies within the Route 60 growth area. I think it would score well on the safety, the economic development. And this one I would say was overwhelmingly the most supported project. I think we got all positive comments on this, no negative comments, and one person who, not negative or positive, just said they aren't sure traffic volumes warrant it yet, but otherwise many comments that this is needed and would be helpful. The cost of these projects as well, I should say, influences a score. So VDOT will take any of these that we apply for and they'll determine the overall score based on the benefits. Then they'll take that score and divide it by the cost. So a high score project with a low cost would do better than a high score project with a high cost. This one, relative to the other projects, is a much lower cost. So I think this is probably one of the best and most viable applications to receive funding through this particular program. Then we have proposed improvements to Route 711 and Jude's Ferry Road. This one, I would say, generally received comments that people would like to see something done there. About half the comments were, we would support this project. The other half were they would like to see a roundabout, or they would like to see some kind of treatment that is sensitive to the fact that it's a scenic byway and a very rural area, and not wanting to see something overbuilt there that might be more urban than rural. This one does have a relatively higher cost compared to some of the others, and in scoring within Smart Scale, I do have some concern about the economic development. That one, without a lot of commercial land here, it might struggle to score on that part, which is a big piece, but it is one that's been on the books for a while. It's been planned and studied by the county and VDOT. And again, generally, people are supportive of seeing something happen there. Then we had Page Road and County Line Road realignment. This one, generally, most of the comments we received were in opposition, at least to this particular solution of taking both Page and County Line and shifting them and realigning them. Many of the people we spoke to did say they think there's some issues there. They would like to see us look at this intersection and do something, just not necessarily this. So we got some really good feedback and dialogue with some of the key stakeholders that own property at the intersection and, you know, what they see happening there and what they might be willing to be a part of. So I think this is one that we continue to study, look at, but I don't think it's prime for an application this round. And then lastly, we were looking at improvements to the Route 609 and Old Buckingham Road intersection. This one, we currently have a study with VDOT looking at this. It's not completed at this time, but we've had really good discussions with members of the public and some of the key stakeholders at that intersection. VDOT has actually already ordered some improvements as far as signage, just as an incremental step. Some other great ideas have been proposed by some of the property owners there for things that could potentially help, that they're a lot more cost effective. And then we're still awaiting the result of the formal study from VDOT that will propose some solutions here. So again, because the study's not complete and there's some other things to look at here, this one I would say not ready for an application at this time. So staff would recommend of those that the four, the Jude's Ferry at Route 60, the Jude's Ferry at 711, Carter Gallier Phase 2, and Dorset would all make good, viable smart scale applications if you see fit for staff to apply for those. So happy to answer any questions now or after public comment.
So that we know where we're going, my intent is to make a decision tonight on these projects. So questions of staff?
Mr. Chairman, Brett, which were the four that you said staff was recommending?
That would be
Jude's Ferry, and Dorset.
I was looking at Brett, so I didn't hear you.
Sorry.
He had it right. Dorset, Carter Gallier, and both of the Jude's Ferry projects.
Okay.
Mr. Norwood, questions of staff? Ms. Cabell? Bill?
So I attended the meeting, and I thought it was very well attended by citizens in certain areas. My feeling was that Carter Gallier was not something that the majority of the people that were there felt like that needed to take place. There were a lot of questions on that. What was interesting was I asked VDOT about the roundabout there at Man Road, specifically tied to emergency equipment, and they said it could be designed for that. That morning before we had that meeting, I had to go to Chesterfield for some business, and I went through the roundabout that sits at Old 100 Road and Brandon Hill Parkway, which was put in to serve Clovey High School, was also put in to serve Swift Creek Middle School, and a large church. And it's a roundabout that fire trucks, policemen, school buses go through all day long. It was interesting that evening as we were going there, the park was loading up for its youth activities that evening. And there were 9 people sitting at the intersection trying to figure out who had the right of way to go straight, who was supposed to take left, who I'm supposed to yield to, who I'm not supposed to yield to. So this intersection is not going to get any easier. The park will continue to grow. The library will continue to be used. The Y will continue to be used. The engineering company will still be back there hauling equipment in. And the middle school will now have more traffic. And if you go through that intersection in the morning, when the buses are coming, when the mom's trying to get their son who got out of the bed late because he doesn't want to go to school in the first place, so she throws him in the car, and he misses the bus, she throws him in the car, and she goes flying up the road to try to get him there on time because he's slept in that morning. It's not going to get any easier. I see this as a good solution. You're not going to fix the transfer station ingress egress with this intersection. The buses, when the buses are there, it backs out up onto 60. By putting the roundabout there, if you have continuous movement, you don't have the backup out off of Man Road onto 60. I see this as a project, while hasn't been a lot of accidents there, unlike 609 and 13, which I do think needs some more study done on it, which has a large amount of accident data. I think Man Road is something that really does need to be addressed because it's going to intensify. We just put a bus garage there, intensified the use of the bus garage by putting the county vehicles in there. So I see this as an intersection that needs to be addressed.
Any final comments before I start the process? So,
and let me,
we'll open the public hearing on this.
I was just going to clarify one point, that the board you know, any projects that we don't apply for, we don't put in the system, we won't be able to move forward. You certainly could, between now and the August 1 deadline, if there's any of these projects you want us to advance further, vet a little more, we could go ahead and get them in the system, move it forward, and then any time between now and August, you all could say, no, we don't want that one to be submitted. So again, if you don't put any of them in, they don't move forward. If you do make a decision tonight, that doesn't mean you can't pull back on any of them. Just understanding you do only have a maximum of 4 slots to work with.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask a question too? Yeah. I may have misunderstood some earlier conversation with Mr. Chardon about Jude's Ferry. I was under the impression we were going to be recommending the one with 60, but not the one with 7-Eleven. Could you clarify that just again? Are we saying that we would proceed with 7-Eleven just to gain some more research and information as opposed to actually thinking it would be feasible? Or?
You know, this is just me speaking, not VDOT officially. I think that one will probably not score as well. The cost is higher, and it doesn't have the economic impact that some of the others do. So I think it'll be one of the more difficult ones to score. If there isn't a project that you would rather we move forward than that, it wouldn't hurt to put it in. We can, again, with VDOT's design team through this process, learn some things, and maybe it does score well, but if not, we see, you know, where it scored high, where it scored low, and this isn't the only way to fund projects. So I think it would be good to use all 4 of our slots, again, to advance some of these, learn some more, and hopefully they're all funded, but if not, it wouldn't be for naught. But if there's one that you think would be better, you know, then place it.
Well,
but if
let me make a comment. When we started this process, I said my #1 priority is existing projects that we know about, that we've done corridor studies that affect public safety. Now, I can't think of a project that we have, of these projects, where we've had more difficulties with traffic and public safety than that section of 7-Eleven, which includes the intersection.
Mr. Williams, I agree, and I am full support of putting it. I do want to get in the road building business, because
Yeah.
it's a $9 million project, so, which is mind-boggling to me.
But let me finish.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, public safety is our #1 charge. Now, it might not make it, you know, it might not get selected, but it's here today, and it's been there for a long period of time, and until we resolve, we did the corridor study back in 2006 for 7-Eleven. And you can see every section of 7-Eleven documented with the geometric deficiencies, intersection deficiencies, the lack of shoulders, recovery zones. It's all documented. And now we're looking at, what, 12 years later, and we've only made progress down at Huguenot Springs, where we were able to get that scored for Smart Scale, which, you know, I was tickled to death to get. So I'm going to keep pushing, you know, for these projects that have the public safety. That's going to be my #1 priority, particularly those that have languished, where we've known we've had these deficiencies out there for years. I'm going to look for every way I can to get funding for them. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Final comments before I open the public hearing? If you wish to address the board on this issue, please come forward and give us your name, address, county or city.
Go ahead, Dave.
Good evening. My name is David Zaletti. My family and I reside at 2630 Huguenot Trail, and I'll fill the form out in a moment. I'm a citizen who not only lives on our scenic byway known as Route 711, which we're having this discussion over, but I'm also a contractor with my office located on the road. I have strong personal love of this road as well as a business love of this road by having the honor of working on many of the historical homes along the road and building quite a few homes and a brewery that my employees and I are very proud of. The historical and scenic value of 7-Eleven, in my opinion, is unmatched by anything in our entire region except maybe Route 5 in Charles City. About 15 years ago, a group known as the Friends of the Scenic Byways was formed to help ensure our future generations know not only the history of our road, but help preserve the beauty that it beholds. The group accomplished many things, such as, number one, ensuring the subdivisions of Aston and Oak Leaf had large lots, upwards of 20 acres fronting 7-Eleven, to ensure the scenic beauty of the road. Number two, we facilitated in educating the owners of multiple properties that are now under conservation easements along the road. Number three, we facilitated the installation of historical markers along the road, including the Civil War Trails pull-off honoring Lee's last bivouac. Number four, ensuring that when brush trimming is to be done along the road, it is actually performed with mechanical cutters and not sprayed with defoliant. I must personally thank Mr. Tucker for his memory on this with our recent trimming. If it were not for him, I'm afraid defoliant would have been sprayed on the road again, which was not supposed to ever happen. Number five, we made requests that the guardrails installed along 7-Eleven would be brown rusted types, for which now, unfortunately, some of them are being replaced with the galvanized ones. I don't really understand why, but I thought I'd bring that to attention while I'm speaking. Number six, and most proudly, this group played a major role in the look and scale of Winter Place Center, the development that Buddy Sowers did on 7-Eleven east of 288. I think everyone in this room can say that this commercial development is like no other development in Powhatan, not only from an aesthetic point of view, but as a revenue generating development as well. Another area of study along the road was done in conjunction with the Planning and Community Development Department at VCU. A graduate student did his master's project on the scenic byway, and members of our group accompanied Tony to his presentation and met with his professors to validate the hard work that he put forth. A small section of this project discussed roundabouts as a future solution when the road warranted improvements. Well, I'm here tonight to bring this subject to forefront, which seems to have totally been lost over time, back to the forefront of discussions now that a potential project is being considered for Jude's Ferry and 7-Eleven. A formal letter to VDOT and you, our board, will be forthcoming, as well as a petition, which you will hear about momentarily, from our citizens requesting that, if indeed the project is considered as one of the four put forth, that we would like the full cooperation of this county to be channeled toward a roundabout as a preferred solution. As I have tried to explain above, this byway is very unique and should be treated as such. A recent realignment of Pleasance Road and 7-Eleven resulted in great site improvements, truly great site improvements, but totally destroyed the scenic character of the road. This should not be allowed to happen again, a general standard VDOT project, and I'm not being critical personally about that. But simply widening and straightening this road does nothing but create a more efficient thoroughfare to encourage even more traffic. A roundabout will, at a minimum, make people slow down and reconsider using 7-Eleven as a shortcut connector. We have a deep history here, as well as stories that need to be shared. What a more perfect way to do this than to create a roundabout with some sort of monument honoring the French Huguenots or Monacan Indians. I'm asking that you, the board, take a leadership role and work with us, the citizens, to make this a win-win for our future. This type of cooperation used to regularly take place and resulted in the 6 accomplishments I previously explained. The roundabout option not only provides the safety solution that is being pushed so hard, but it also provides for the preservation of the beauty of this road as we continue to draw tourists here to enjoy its assets, such as the state park, golfing, weddings, and breweries. I thank you for your time, your consideration, and I trust that you will work together among yourselves and honor what we as citizens, property owners, and business owners would like the future of our Route 7-Eleven, the scenic byway, to look like. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zaletti.
Betty Handy, 3171 Jude's Ferry Road. And I have lived at this current address for the last 56 years. I'm going to reiterate things that I have said either individually to members of the board or the previous board about that particular intersection. I live only, maybe 3171 is only about less than a quarter of a mile north of that intersection. The last time we counted, which was a couple of years ago, there were only 84 houses on the north side of that road. There have been several more houses there, and there is an active riding academy. Two of the places there have horse shows with the horse trailers and that sort of thing. There are school buses that attempt to cross that road in the morning and the afternoon, and it's a really dangerous intersection. Nobody knows what to do when they get there. So I'm just urging you to do something about that intersection, either with your smart money or wherever you can get it. And as I said, I've talked about this individually and to a bunch of you many times, and to this forum times before. So I hope you'll keep it on your list to do something about the intersection. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Handy.
My name is Connie Harris. I live at 1470 Huguenot Trail. I and others who live on Huguenot Trail intend to circulate petitions to have the speed limit on that road, 711, reduced to 45 miles an hour, and to request roundabouts at Huguenot Springs, Mannequin Town Ferry, Jude's Ferry, and Three Bridge Roads. The reasoning is that 711 is a scenic byway with a natural winding road 12 miles in length between Route 288 on the east and 522 on the west. I've recently placed Norwood, my historic property, and there are many others along this road, beautiful, lovely, bucolic road, but I've placed my property into a conservation easement. One of the conditions of the holder of that easement was that the view shed of Norwood from 711 be protected and preserved in perpetuity. No driver going 60 to 65 miles per hour should look to his left or his right at that speed. We all know that most cars on 711 are traveling at a speed exceeding 55 miles per hour. Rural living means many things, one of which is a slower lifestyle. Why is the speed limit on 711 now set at 45 miles per hour between 288 and Mannequin Town Ferry Road? Cars still barrel off 288 at 55 miles per hour. Why is the limit 40 miles per hour on Mannequin Town Ferry, the only north-south road off of 711 with any width and shoulders? Why does the speed limit change from 45 on Three Bridge Road to 55 on Academy Road? The county has told me many times that only VDOT can set the speed limits. However, numerous VDOT folks have told me that a petition to the board could trigger action to have the speed limit reduced. Most people travel at 9 miles over the speed limit. If we had a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit, people would be traveling what the speed limit is set for right now. A slower speed limit could allow roundabouts, thereby preserving the beauty of Route 711, but especially one would know upon entering our county to the west of 288 that you are in a rural county, and that is what Powhatan citizens have told you over and over again that we want. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harris.
Good evening. My name is George Holt, and I'll be speaking for the Huguenot Trail Jude's Ferry intersection upgrade. In two regards. One is individual and a resident of Powhatan, and the other as the chairman of the Buildings and Grounds Committee for the Emmaus Christian Church on that corner. First, I've been driving that road for 25 years, almost on a daily basis, and something needs to happen there. I've got a lot of stories. Most people that drive that route have their stories of near misses or minor accidents. I also, Sunday, we kind of did it in a hurry because I didn't know about this meeting until middle of last week. But I did talk to as many people in church this past Sunday as I could. And the general consensus of our congregation is, and I'm sure there's some folks that I didn't talk to that may feel differently, but we feel like this is going to be a good solution to this corner. It's going to take a lot of our property. It's going to take a chunk of the church property to do this. And we're willing to do it because it will do two things. It'll straighten that road out and it'll open it up so people can see. Those are the two biggest complaints that I hear about is people at that intersection can't see because of the trees, the bushes, even a few people complain about our sign, but that'll all be taken care of if this project goes through. And like I said, I think something needs to be done, whether it's a roundabout. I'm not as clear on what the impacts of that would be. But I do like the idea of having turning lanes and opening the space up so it can be seen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holt. Anyone else wish to address us on this issue? Good to see you.
I was waiting for all the 7-Eleven folks to share first. I'm going to move west of the county.
To the good part.
To the good part, the country life. My name's Teresa Whitlock, and my husband and I reside at 1875 Giles Bridge Road, which is the only residence actually on the intersection of 13 and 609. I'm speaking from the perspective of the homeowner, an EMT, and the person that had my life changed in 2010 on a county road due to being hit on a similar curve. We have proactively communicated with the board, VDOT, and the planning department as part of the ongoing VDOT traffic study and voiced our concerns and suggestions. As part of the discussions, it's my understanding, and Brett has reiterated, that VDOT is looking into some signage improvement which has helped in the past. A larger stop sign on Route 609, flashing lights on the stop sign ahead on Route 609, improving the signage for the curve ahead for those traveling west on Route 13, and also possibly lighting the intersection with a light. We as homeowners are in support of those above changes and considerations of others that resolve the main issues of speed and visibility. We have seen the 3 preliminary proposals as part of the study and have shared our concerns as well. We are concerned that the changes will actually increase the number of accidents at our residency instead of improving them. Here are a couple of examples. Most of the accidents are caused by speed or distracted drivers who do not see the stop sign on 609. The recommended safe speed for the curve is 30 miles per hour, and vehicles attempt to travel at the speed limit of 55 or above. We have suggested lowering the speed limit to 45 on both that section of Route 13 and 609. If the speed limit is not addressed, then the curve itself needs to be addressed to enable drivers to safely maneuver the curve at 55. Prior to Nichols Store being moved, as part of the last VDOT improvement approximately 20 years ago, Route 609 vehicles did not run through the intersection because the headlights saw directly into the store. Since the moving of the store and the changing of the intersection, numerous reported and unreported vehicles have run through the intersection at 55 miles per hour, creating the T-bone accidents. Removing of the brick pillars, trees, etc. on our southwest corner of the intersection for one of the proposed changes would create a similar issue for those traveling westbound on Route 13, and we would no longer have any protection or buffer to prevent vehicles from driving into our home where our bedrooms are located and therefore sleepless nights. For the eastbound vehicles on Route 13 going too fast, they lose control and wreck on the dirt area and the field on the southeast corner where the cedar trees used to be but have all been taken down by vehicles. In one of the solutions, adding a merging lane, etc., in that area would now put the merging traffic at risk of being struck by those going too fast on an easterly direction on 13. I do not believe that the proposals, except for potentially the rotary, would improve the visibility for the vehicles traveling Route 13 and 609.
Please continue.
Thank you. Unlike the 7-Eleven corridor, a roundabout we do not believe is a solution for our intersection due to the heavy level of traffic by 18-wheeler trucks. It's a main thoroughfare from 360 to 60 to 64. In addition, our concern is that the initial proposals seem to be focused on traffic congestion versus speed issues and visibility. While the intersection has a lot of traffic, it is seldom to rare to see more than a few cars, if any, waiting to make a turn at the intersection. Even during heavy work hours in the morning and school traffic, you may see 4 or 5 cars waiting to make a turn, but you never see 10, 12 cars at that intersection. We support the recommendation that that intersection not be included in the current SMART funding, but that it continued to be studied to address the issue of the speed through the intersection, as well as the visibility for those traveling Route 13 west attempting to turn left on 609. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Whitaker. Well thought through. Anyone wish to address the board further? Then I close a public hearing on this issue.
Just, Mr. Chairman, just a little history on 13 and 609. It's been something that we all have, you all graciously have allowed us to continue some study on, and it does need to be continued to study. I am okay pulling it off as Smart Scale, as Brett and I have talked, and Ms. Whitaker and I have talked. Ms. Whitaker has a historic home, and for those of you who've never seen it, it's a beautiful property. Unfortunately, sometimes there are people who go through her boxwoods and up onto her front porch, and that's happened in my 23 years down there a couple of times that I'm aware of. The cedar tree she's speaking of also had a phone box inside of them, and that's been taken out a couple of times. So it is an intersection that we will address, whether it be in Smart Scale or 6-year secondary plans. But I'm okay not submitting it because I do think Ms. Whitaker's brought some good ideas and is willing to work with us. And I think VDOT's got some suggestions that will help. And,
Any final comments before I start polling? What I'd like to do is an informal poll so we get a slate of 4 to vote on formally. So this is a non-binding vote. How many of you want to keep Jude's Ferry and 60 on the list? Jude's Ferry and 60.
I do.
I do.
Yes.
Okay, that's 1. How many of you want to keep the Dorset Road project on
Yes.
the list?
I do.
That's 2. How many of you want to keep the 711 Jude's Ferry Road on the list?
Yes.
I do.
How many want, now we've got actually 3 left, the Man Road and 13, Carter Gallier, and the Page County line. Can we strike Page County line?
Yes.
Do we have agreement?
Yes.
We got it down to 2. It's between Man Road and 13 and Carter Gallier Extension. David, where you at?
Go with staff.
Which was?
Carter Gallier.
Larry?
Same.
Man.
I listened to the public that evening, and I didn't feel like, I'm not in support of Carter Gallier Extension at this time. I think it could be something that developers should participate in the future, and so I'm not in support of it. I'm in support of Man Road.
I am in support of the Carter Gallier Extension. We've been dreaming for years about a parallel road system in the county. This is an opportunity to go online and try to make it happen. So the informal vote is Jude's Ferry and 711, Jude's Ferry and 60, Dorset Road, and Carter Gallier. I'll make a motion that we submit these 4 for Smart Scale competition downtown.
Second.
Any final comments?
I will support the motion, although I still think that Carter Gallier should be done in a different way.
Thank you. Can you take a roll?
Aye.
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 Aye. So be it. Do you have what you need to go forward? Right. Now, to the issues that have been brought up by the speakers about 7-Eleven particularly, I think we agree in principle that we'd like to participate in the design of that thing so that we don't do violence to the scenic byway. What's that? Oh, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Norrick. Appreciate it. Good luck. Brett?
And we do have a representative from VDOT here tonight. I might just ask them if they can answer this. I don't know if we need to know the direction, if you want to explore the roundabout or not. I would want to make sure we have enough information tonight to put that application together and we don't go advancing a project in the wrong direction from what you all are thinking. So I don't know if we can kind of explore both, or if we need to take a direction tonight.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't have to take a direction on what specific project until the August 1st deadline. If you want to move forward with the 711 Jude's Ferry project, we can certainly do that and look at the proposal as it was with just the turn lanes and minor widening, or the option of a roundabout. We kind of talked about it internally at VDOT after hearing the comments about a roundabout, and think that it'll probably serve the same safety and operational benefits as the current design, but it would be more expensive. So that's just something to keep in mind for Smart Scale, because you do divide your benefit by the cost
Right.
to get your
Right.
total score.
But you have heard how strongly the people feel about the scenic byway, and I'm one of those.
Right.
Mr. Melton?
Just a question, so is a $9 million placeholder for the roundabout or the $90 million placeholder for the other project?
The $9 million was the estimate for the project as presented at the open house, not the roundabout. So we would anticipate that if it was a roundabout, it would be a higher cost.
Thank you so much.
I got a question,
Yes.
if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Surely.
I would like to know what VDOT's recommendation is, you know, as it pertains to Route 711. You know, it's a scenic byway, but also serves as a way for people to go to work every morning. In this county, we are the workforce for Richmond, Chesterfield, Henrico. Everybody gets up in the morning and drives to 288. What I want to know from VDOT is how well will that work versus, you know, the way that we have the traditional intersections now with traffic moving at a certain rate in and out of the county. What are we looking at if we put in, as has been proposed, 3 roundabouts instead of, you know, having intersection improvements with turn lanes? What does that do for traffic, for through traffic on that road in the county? You know, this is a county decision because it's not a, you know, District 1, it's not District 3, it's not even a District 5 decision. It's a county decision because everybody uses roads. And we have 3 roads that are very important in this county, Route 6522 and Route 711. So I want to make sure whatever recommendation that we, you know, end up doing as it pertains to whether we want intersections with turn lanes or we want roundabouts up and down 711, that we involve the whole county, that everybody participates because we all use the roads and we know with our eyes wide open what that's going to look like in terms of adding time, getting in and out of this county, and people can make an informed decision once we have that information. But y'all are the transportation experts. You know, I was told that roundabouts typically work best when you have roughly proportional traffic from 4 different directions. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true. When you have a high volume of traffic, that you wouldn't want one route in the intersection to have a predominant amount of the traffic volume, because then it doesn't create gaps for the incoming traffic to enter the roundabout. So at this location, we did look at the traffic volume. Obviously, it's much higher on 711 than it is on Jude's Ferry, but I think the volumes are not so high that a roundabout wouldn't be a feasible option. I think a roundabout is still a possibility on 711.
Well, like I said, you know, whatever we do, I just want to make a decision, you know, a county decision, that if we want to do it at one intersection, are we planning on carrying this forward for the whole length of Route 711? If we are, what does that mean in terms of moving traffic in and out of this county? I'm not a traffic engineer, so I'm going to be looking to y'all to tell me, you know, what the levels of service are going to be in the mornings at those intersections with roundabouts, and then what would the level of services look like? Would it be different with turn lanes, you know, at the intersections? That's the kind of questions, you know, how many, you know, additional minutes are going to be, you know, applied going from one length of, you know, 711 to the other. You're going to have other issues coming. We know from the Corps study coming in off of 288 that at some point down the road, it's not we're nowhere near it now, but they were saying, you know, potentially 4 lanes out to Manikintown Ferry Road from 288. So are we going to do a roundabout, for example, at Manikintown Ferry Road?
I mean, I think that would be something for the county
Well,
to decide.
Well, I want
I'll-
to make sure, want to just make sure we're planning, because there's not a whole lot of dollars going around at VDOT these days.
Right.
So,
Let me ask the same question slightly differently. If by chance 711 Jude's Ferry makes the smart scale cut,
Mhm.
will VDOT work with us to do two approaches, one standard approach and one the roundabout approach, and compare the two and all the parameters that Mr. Williams was asking about, cost, speed, everything that needs to be taken into consideration? Will VDOT work with us to make the final decision on which way to go? We're making the decision to go.
Right.
We just have to take the left lane or the right lane at
Sure.
this point.
Yeah, so you would have to have your scope of the project at the August 1st timeframe.
Gotcha.
That it was applied for.
Gotcha, so sooner rather than later.
Right, so,
Because-
I mean, we have an option for the intersection with just the turn lanes and the minor widening. From now to the August 1st timeframe, we could look at getting our design section to put together a sketch for a roundabout as well and see what the impacts might be. If you wanted to move forward with this project in general, and then by August 1st, decide which intersection treatment would be appropriate.
Mr. Melton?
I think we would have, because the applications are weighted based upon cost factors and all those things, so the decision would be the 9.2 for the current project, or whatever it turned out to be for a roundabout. Back to the, and I know I've talked to you and others about speed studies and speed limits, and we had a citizen bring it up tonight. It is perplexing and baffling to me when I drive to other localities and I use Genito Road when you leave Chesterfield coming towards Mosley Road, that it's 35 miles an hour, less curvature, less ingress, you have better shoulders and ditches, and it's 35 miles an hour, yet I can't get a road slowed down from 55 to 45, from 45 to 40. And I've asked this question of VDOT, is it a road classification? They tell me no. So yes, we can submit for road speed studies. That doesn't mean it's going to get lowered. I've done speed studies on 13 at least 5 times in the last, 20 years.
have you ever been successful?
I've had, Mr. Norvig and I were able to get Jude's Ferry, excuse me, not Jude's Ferry, but Rocky Ford Road slowed down. I did get the intersection at 1002 and 13 changed to 45, and I was the first person to get a speeding ticket there. But I've asked for speed studies on 13 leaving the village from 55 to 45, which is about 2.5 miles. I'm not sure how much time you really save when you go 55 and 2.5 miles. So it is frustrating, and I'm not complaining to you. It's just a bigger picture. We just recently had one where it's a dead-end road. We had a hard time getting lowered on a dead-end road, the speed limit. And roundabouts may be the solution in a way, because you definitely slow down going through the roundabout, and then you would speed up between it, and then you might slow down on another one. I'm not sure. But, I agree with Ms. Harris and others that the speed limit on that road should be lowered. And in 12 miles, if you're running 45, I don't know how much time you really save if you're driving 12 miles going 45 versus 12 miles. It's not in your whole scheme of things. And if you really do want to slow down and look at the scenic properties, you're sure not doing them at 60. And
Well,
so.
that leads to the question, what are you going to do in between the roundabouts? You're going to pick up speed, you're going to accelerate, and you're going to try to make up time.
And I don't know if there is a solution.
No,
but,
I'm not, I know you don't.
So let me ask my question again in a different way. You say we need to have the scope worked out before August the 1st so you can get the final numbers. Can we get those two options done by August the 1st, in your professional opinion, working with you and our staff and Mr. Williams if he wants to head the group?
Yeah, I mean, I think we already have the one option and the estimate for it, so we could take a similar approach with the roundabout. I could take it back to the design staff and get them to put another sketch together and another estimate.
Are you committing to do that for us?
I'm sorry?
Are you committing to doing that for us?
Yes, I'll go back to the design section.
Thank you
and get
very
them to
much.
do a
That's very kind of
roundabout
you.
study.
Any final comments on this?
Just one last comment, then we can move on. It occurred to me, if one day if we are looking at 4 lanes from 288 to Mannequin, and let's just say we had a roundabout there, because it would make sense, if you're going to do it at one intersection, why wouldn't you do it in all your major intersections, the same thing? Where you have problems with roundabouts is where you have double lanes. I think you told us that, or somebody did. Maybe it was Kevin Reichert. All you need to do is, John Watkins is left, so I can say this again. Go down to the Watkins Center. People don't know what to do when they're in that outside lane. That roundabouts seem to work better when you just got one lane. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, one last comment.
Please.
And I'm going to leave it alone. Cardigalia is something that we have worked tirelessly on to try to work on. I just think we provided a solution to the developmental community by trying to tap into $6 million of funds that we could have used in other areas that possibly could have been shared by the developmental community. In my conversation over the years, there were some developers that were willing to step up at the time of need to help with that cost. So we provided a $6 million opportunity for people to step away from their obligations. So just my comment.
Any final comments? Close this issue out. We're moving to item number 13 on their agenda. Public comment period. This is our second public comment period. If you wish to address the board on any issue, please come forward. And please abide by the rules that I ask about at the beginning of the meeting. If you wish to address us, please come forward. Seeing no one come forward, I'll close our second public comment period. County Attorney comments?
No comments, Mr. Chairman.
County Administrator comments?
No comments.
Board comments?
No comments.
Mr. Latchney, would you give us the wording for closed session?
All righty. Whereas the Board of Supervisors of Powhatan County desires to discuss in closed meeting the following: discussion of the assignment and duties of the paralegal of the County Attorney's Office, discussion or consideration of investment of public funds concerning Cobb's Creek project where competition or bargaining is involved, where if made public initially, the financial interests of the government unit would be adversely affected. Consultation with legal counsel pertaining to actual and probable litigation concerning the Batterson FOIA case and a violation of the zoning ordinance with respect to wedding venues, where such consultation in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body. Consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by the public body regarding specific legal matters, 1, involving a potential landfill in Cumberland, 2, the granting of a family subdivision exception, and 3, the contract of the county attorney, all of which require the provision of legal advice by such counsel. And whereas pursuant to sections 2.2, 37, 11A1, A6, A7, and A8 of the Code of Virginia, such discussions may occur in closed meeting. Now therefore be resolved by the Board of Supervisors of Powhatan County that it authorizes discussion of forestated matters in closed meeting. Need that as a motion.
That is a motion. A second, please.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're in closed session. I hereby reconvene the regular meeting of the Powhatan County Board of Supervisors in open meeting and request the clerk of the board to conduct a roll call certification vote of the supervisors to be included in the minutes of this meeting.
Board members, do certify to the best of your knowledge that the only matters discussed in the closed meeting were public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements, and only such business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened and heard, or were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting just conducted. Mr. Williams.
Aye.
And Mr. Nordvig will be marked as absent. Mrs. Cabell?
Aye.
Mr. Melton?
Aye.
Mr. Tucker?
Aye. There being no further business for the board, this meeting is adjourned.
At 9:30 or 9:28.